Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another panel discussion looking at organisational behaviour and specifically the topic of organisational change. My name's Trevor Hartley, and I'm joined on the panel by two esteemed colleagues, Patrick Canine and Nick Kitchen. Gentlemen, would you mind introducing yourselves, please?
Hi, my name is Pat Canine. I'm based in Ireland. I'm engaged in management development, executive coaching, and for the last several years prior to that, I worked in a large semiconductor industry across a number of different countries, working in both the US, the Far East, and in Europe. But most recently, I've been most interested in management development, the management of change, the challenges of change, and I'm certainly very interested in this topic and our conversations today.
Hi, I'm Nick Kitchen. I'm an executive coach and consultant, and I've worked for many years with the senior management of multinationals, really working through and supporting them in change across diverse regions and cultures, and all of that throws up for individuals and groups within organisations. And previously, my first career was in the advertising world, and I worked for a multinational company, and so I saw it at first hand, actually, the challenges of integrating approaches across the whole organisation, whilst being very powerfully nationalist as well. So I'm looking forward to our discussion today, gentlemen.
Fantastic. Thank you so much and welcome. The topic we have today is somewhat of an intriguing one, and given our time limits, it's something that we're really just going to scratch the surface. I mean, you start talking change management and you could have a week seminar on all the facets of change management. I guess what we want to do today is really using the case study that we have available is just look at what is change all about in this current situation that Sky Innovations find themselves. What are some of the things they need to consider? So, Nick, starting off with yourself, you know the situation, you've read the case study. When you look at the current culture of the organization that was so successful versus where they are now, huge cultural shift, huge change necessary. Your thoughts on what's just gone down?
Well, I suppose this is change management in the raw. This is a burning platform. In fact, it's falling apart as they're going. And they went to bed one night and they were on Earth, and they wake up on Mars. So almost every facet of the way they construct their world, the way they think about engaging with clients, and the way they get business. I mean, previously it suggests that business would almost walk through the door. When suddenly that's not the case, immense challenges to then totally rethink the way they engage with clients and actually go out and have to win clients and position themselves to effectively do that. So, I mean, it does remind me that actually when you're growing at that sort of rate, having an ability and the confidence to look ahead and say, well, when we don't grow at that sort of rate, what do we need to have in place in order to be more robust, perhaps, when the inevitable change comes? And what we know about any sort of boom period is, and we've learned most dramatically recently, of course, is that it will be followed by a slowdown or a drop off a cliff.
And I think to make this situation even more interesting, you had an incredibly charismatic CEO who was leading the organization. There was then a change in CEO, which we all know. When there's a CEO, when there's someone at the helm, the organization inherently takes on something of that person's personality, of that person's vision, no matter how big the organization. One just needs to look at Microsoft and the transition when Bill Gates stepped down as CEO to someone very, very different, how that impacts on an organization. So, Pat, your thoughts on the current scenario, Sky Innovations having come through a really successful period, now faced with some really tough challenges. What are some of your thoughts on the case?
Really tough challenges. There's a situation whereby, at least with there are, I think, as it's been shown over time, there are leaders for peacetime and there are leaders for wartime. And in that regard, I have a sense from the case that perhaps the original leader might not have been the best person to lead them through the more crisis-driven situation that they find themselves in now. Indeed, how you can grow a people resource organisation, which essentially is what they're involved in. It's all about people having the right people with the right skills, right capabilities. How you can grow an organisation, ahead of the curve, and understanding what that is, but your absorption rate of bringing that number of people in, giving them the essential or maybe the bare essential skills to go out and work with clients has to have been an enormously challenging thing to do. And you are left wondering at the end of the day how well the clients were served with people who'd come in, because in terms of the minimum experience that they must have had in that situation. So lots and lots of challenges, and with a lot of dramatic actions to be taken, I think, as they go forward.
I think the other thing to remember, just thinking about the region, I think was Russia and the former Soviet Union, was this is also a whole environment that was only a few years into a market economy, a capitalist mindset. So an incredible sort of Wild West environment where they're educating clients. Clients don't know how they should be related to. Valuations on firms wasn't even something that was around as a notion a few years before. So my hat's off to all of them. And I think in some ways, firms run from, you're trying to manage a firm from absolute stasis, rigidity and hierarchy to chaos. And there is a sweet spot in the middle where you are alive and dynamic and flexible and responsive. Sounds like this firm was quite close to the edge of chaos, probably, as was the market that it was in, because I think we read the market itself was growing at 30% a year. Yeah. So I mean, it's a lovely example of how you manage rapid growth. Some things to pay attention to.
So, gentlemen, we've got this situation now. Sky Innovations in desperate need of some kind of change management process. Like we've said, this is probably quite an extreme situation. The platform is busy burning. They need to have something of a change. But prior to jumping into the detail of the case, perhaps you could just, in your years of experience and the various clients that you've dealt with, when you talk around change management, and I know it's an extensive topic, but if you could give a couple of highlights, a couple of handles to say, if you're going through a change management process, these are some of the key things that you need to be considering. Pat, what would some of those things be, very high level, that one would need to consider?
I think you've got to start with some clarity around the business model as you go forward from here. Having some understanding with regard to the scope of the market, the opportunities that will present themselves, that tightening market, having some really good understanding as to what that is and where it might lead over the next couple of years, giving you some roadmap, acknowledging there may be a few twists and turns, but some roadmap as to where you're going, I think, is essential, because otherwise, just taking a knee-jerk reaction and just cutting heads, arbitrarily saying we've got to reduce headcount, we've got to reduce our costs, without understanding that most likely scenario, I think, is a very dangerous situation. So you've got to be mindful of the most probable scenario that you're looking forward to. I
think, Nick, your thoughts on that? Would you agree with what Pat's saying?
Absolutely. And then I think as you engage with this, to some extent, the idea of almost yin and yang and hard and soft comes to mind. And it needs to be this really magic mix of the two as a leader. The soft might be, talk, listen, communicate, keep engaging with your people. But certainly in a crisis situation, be really clear where your bottom lines are and have those devised. So take a view of the future and recognise that, in this case, this submarine perhaps is plummeting, to use it. We've had burning platforms and submarines, and a train might appear at some point at the end of a tunnel. But and to be really clear, and I think so for a leader, it's a real mix of the hard and soft. This is a really clear vision. These are the facts, guys, and that's a hard line. And then an ability to listen and talk and engage with people authentically, so that they can take these people with them.
I think absolutely critical what you're saying there is that, as Pat mentioned earlier, there sometimes comes a situation where there's a knee-jerk reaction. We need to get something done quickly, but if that takes place without the soft, without engaging people, without letting them really understand the situation, without being transparent about where the organisation actually is, it can actually have a long-term detriment. So, gentlemen, looking at the case study, our learners have been given three options: option A, option B, and option C. Option A, looking for management to move quickly, realizing it's a professional services firm. They've recruited ahead of the curve, so there needs to be some kind of repercussion with regards to staff. Your thoughts on that? Pat, how does one approach solution A? Is that the right solution?
I think it's part of the solution. Realistically, you're talking about an operation, an office that was, distributed office of 4,500 people. You're just talking about incising it down to about 2,000 or thereabouts. I mean, dramatic reduction. To do that, that has to be really well thought through. For any organisation, reducing, the workforce is a really tough, heart-wrenching, because it's a very human dimension. What's remembered very often afterwards is not the fact that the organisation had to go through that workforce reduction, but the manner in which they did it.
So what we're hearing, Solution A focuses on optimizing your staff levels in line with what your client needs are. Important part of the process. But perhaps let's look at Solution B. The leader's role in creating this vision, this creative tension to something better, a better future, not just looking at the current situation, and really focusing the organisation on doing the right things and role modelling this. Nick, how important is leadership in this change management process?
It's absolutely critical. If we're thinking about part B, absolutely critical. This notion of role modelling is absolutely critical as well. I would say, if we're considering B, trying to really paint a picture of a compelling future is very hard when things are tough. People don't believe it. So it's not the whole answer, I'm afraid. There's going to be quite a lot of hard. But I think what can be powerful for a leader is if a leader authentically actually engages with the people and says, this is tough. There's lots of unknowns. There are some knowns. These are some of the facts. And I think the more a leader chooses to do that, and sometimes that's counterintuitive because leaders often can go into their shells. When things are tough, they can decide to become very autocratic, take tough decisions, and forget that still being aligned with and engaged and authentically communicating with their staff is still very important. So I think in terms of options, that's part of a solution. But bearing in mind, it's very hard to have a compelling future when the future is bleak for half your workforce.
Absolutely. Almost lacking a sense of reality to an extent if a leader does just
that can be
go
the
that
danger.
route.
Absolutely, yeah.
So then let's move along to the third possible alternative, and that is really defining the business results, aligning their capital, which is their major asset, and actually reskilling their people to focus on core functions they may not have had to focus on before. How do we win business? How do we service clients? How do we create a practice of discipline in terms of what we're doing?
That probably was the most compelling proposition that was available at the time, which is, this actually means we have to step up our game as professional practitioners, and there could be some pride in that. Sky Innovations was would have standards that perhaps they weren't previously meeting, and international standards indeed, and so the opportunity to really become a senior trusted advisor professional in that field was afforded suddenly by this space. So I think the two, so I think on balance of the three, though they overlap, I think being really clear about the hard things, which we really need to cut costs dramatically, otherwise we have no business. And this is an opportunity to upskill our people to really engage, effectively and professionally with clients. That seems, a pretty good response in that situation.
So what I'm hearing here is, again, academically versus practically, no one correct solution. There needs to be a combination of the solutions we have, but on absolute face value, what I'm hearing is perhaps a leaning towards solution C. Gentlemen?
I would say certainly C. But not C in its own right. Inevitably, there's going to be a reduction in the workforce. So I think that none of these are mutually exclusive.
Absolutely.
It is a combination, but it's the manner in which they are stitched together in terms of a more comprehensive, cohesive action, I think, is what's important.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. When looking at change management in an organisation, always a tricky subject, never one clear-cut solution, needing to understand the impact of one's actions. Thank you very much to our panel, to Nick, to Pat for being here. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.